The Shadow of the Sphinx, a cinematic documentary script and analytical narrative of the Battle of Isandlwana. Part 1. The Kingdom of the Heavens, the Zulu Kingdom, or KwaZulu, was not merely a collection of tribes, but a sophisticated, centralized military state that had reached its zenith under the lineage of Shaka Kasenzanga Kona. By 1879, the kingdom was ruled by King Cetshwayo Kampande, a man of immense physical presence and diplomatic acumen. Cetshwayo, described as every inch a king by even his enemies, sought to maintain the strength of the Zulu military while navigating the treacherous waters of Victorian geopolitics. The Zulu social structure was fundamentally martial. Through the Amabuto system, every young man was inducted into an age-grade regiment, living in military kraals called amakanda. This was more than a military draft. It was a rite of passage, a way of life that fostered absolute discipline and a collective identity that transcended local chieftainships. The warriors were not professional soldiers in the European sense. They were cattlemen, craftsmen, and hunters who, when the king called, transformed into the most lethal light infantry in Africa. Zulu military organization description, cultural significance. Ibutho, plural Amabutho. Age-grade regiment formed every few years by the king primary unit of social and military cohesion. Ikanda, plural Amakanda. Military kraal, or barracks where Amabutho resided, symbol of the king's centralized power. Induna, plural Isandlwana. Commanding officer or state official, leaders appointed based on merit and loyalty. Impia mobilized Zulu army or war party. The physical manifestation of national sovereignty. The provocation was calculated. Sir Bartle Frere issued an ultimatum in December 1878 that was designed to be impossible to fulfill. It demanded that the Zulu people dismantle their entire social and military structure, the Amabutho, and allow a British resident to oversee their affairs. It was an invitation to national suicide. Cetshwayo, recognizing the trap, prepared his people. He did not want war, but he would not accept the chains of a protectorate. Part 2. The Arrogance of Empire. The man tasked with crushing the Zulu was Lieutenant General Lord Chelmsford, an establishment figure who had recently suppressed the Xhosa people. Chelmsford suffered from a profound and fatal delusion. He believed that the Zulu, for all their numbers, were a barbaric rabble who would melt away if faced with the discipline of British fire. Chelmsford's strategy was to invade Zululand in 3 columns, converging on the royal capital at Ulundi. Chelmsford personally led the central column, crossing into Zululand at Rorke's Drift. He brought with him 1,700 troops, including the 1st Battalion of the 24th Regiment of Foot, veterans of years of colonial campaigning, along with colonial cavalry and native levies known as the Natal Native Contingent, NNC. However, Chelmsford violated 2 cardinal rules of warfare. He divided his forces in the face of the enemy, and he failed to fortify his base. British force at Isandlwana composition armament infantry, 1st/24th Foot, approximately 600 regulars. Seasoned veterans Martini Henry, .45 caliber rifles. Colonial mounted units approximately 200 volunteers, Natal carbineers, etc. Carbines and revolvers. Natal native contingent approximately 700 auxiliaries, mostly black levies. Spears and limited muskets, Royal Artillery, 2 times 7-pounder guns case shot, and shrapnel. On January 20th, the central column reached the foot of Isandlwana. Chelmsford, convinced the main Zulu army was to the east, took half his column on a reconnaissance mission, leaving Lieutenant Colonel Henry Pauline to guard an unfortified camp with a thin line of redcoats stretched out across the plain. Part 3. The predators in the grass wile. Chelmsford was searching for an enemy he could not find. The Zulu commander, Nchingwayo Kamahole Koza, had already outmaneuvered him. Nchingwayo, a brilliant tactician who had been foster cared by the Xhosa and understood the landscape intimately, had led the main Zulu impi in a series of night marches, keeping them hidden in the dead ground of the valleys. The Zulu army was a marvel of logistics. They required no lumbering supply trains. Each warrior carried a few days' rations of maize and was supported by a small herd of cattle that moved with the regiments. This mobility allowed them to place 20,000 men within striking distance of the British camp without a single scout detecting their presence until it was too late. The discovery of the impi was an accident of fate. On the morning of January 22nd, a troop of British scouts led by Lieutenant Charles Raw chased a small party of Zulu foragers over a ridge. As they reached the crest, they pulled their horses to a halt in sheer terror. Below them, the entire Ngwebeni Valley was carpeted with thousands of warriors who rose as one in a sea of cowhide and steel. Part 4. The Day of the Dead Moon. The battle began under a scorching sun, with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius by mid-morning. The British formed a thin red line with soldiers spaced several feet apart, a formation intended for a European enemy with firearms, not a massed infantry charge. For the first hour, the Martini Henry rifles did their terrible work. The sound was a continuous roar, a fusillade of hot lead that pinned the Zulu center down in the grass. Zulu accounts later spoke of the fire that came like hail. They lay flat on their stomachs, watching their brothers fall, waiting for the moment the fire slackened. That moment came when the British ammunition supply began to fail. Contrary to myth, it wasn't just a lack of screwdrivers to open boxes. It was the sheer distance of the firing line from the wagons and the chaotic distribution of ammunition in the heat of battle. Part 5. The charnel house and the propaganda of the Drift Chelmsford's response was a stammered, "I can't understand it." He had lost 1,300 men, nearly his entire command, to an enemy he had called savages. The impact on the British Empire was seismic. It was the worst defeat ever suffered by a modern European army at the hands of an indigenous force. But as the news traveled back to London, the British government desperately needed a way to save face. They found it at a small mission station called Rorke's Drift, where a few survivors of Isandlwana had fled. There, 150 British soldiers held off 4,000 Zulus from the Uendi and Udloko regiments who had ignored Cetshwayo's orders not to cross into British territory. The two battles of January 22nd, Isandlwana. Rorke's Drift Scale. Conventional field battle. Siege of a fortified post. British casualties, approximately 1,350. Killed, 17 killed, Zulu. Casualties approximately 1,000 to 3,000, killed approximately 500 to 600 killed, Victoria Crosses, 2 posthumous. 11 strategic result, Zulu victory. Invasion halted British victory. Border protected. Part 6. The Broken Crown and the Dignity of Exile. The victory at Isandlwana was a tactical masterpiece, but a strategic catastrophe for the Zulu nation. It ensured that the British would not rest until the Zulu power was broken. A second, massive invasion followed, and in July 1879, Ulundi was burned to the ground. King Cetshwayo was captured in the forest and sent into exile, first to the Castle of Good Hope and later to London. In London, Cetshwayo became an unlikely sensation. The turncoat press that had once called him a barbarian now discovered he was every inch a king. He met with Queen Victoria, who was charmed by his dignity and called him a brave enemy. Cetshwayo used his time in exile to lobby for his people, speaking eloquently about the injustice of the war. He was eventually allowed to return to a partitioned, fractured Zulu land, where he died in 1884, likely poisoned by his rivals. The general who had won Isandlwana, Nashingwayo Kamahole, remained loyal to Cetshwayo until the very end. He was killed in 1883 during a civil war that was encouraged by the British authorities as a way to ensure the Zulu would never rise again. It is a bitter irony that the man who defeated the British Empire was killed by his own countrymen in the ruins of the kingdom he had fought so hard to save.